So with you being around that football at your grandmother's house and playing in the yard or whatever, and basically being able to hear the band and knowing everything going over to Auburn, I mean, you end up going to Auburn.
I ended up going to Auburn, man. I'm telling you, I didn't think, I was going to go to Auburn at first. Auburn was we were around it so much that I was like, oh, this is just Auburn football. I didn't really think much about it. I always watch a lot of television, and I saw the big other schools like Notre Dame and Michigan and Florida State. Some of the other schools with a lot of tradition. I was like, hey, maybe I want to go to one of those schools, and then I get away from home. A lot of kids think when they go to college they got to get away from home, but it just so happened that one of my best friends, his dad was a position coach at Auburn, and his dad coached linebackers. So it was crazy because we used to hang out all the time over each other's house. Sega Genesis was the big thing back then, so we playing Sega Genesis. His dad would come in, stand up, Marcus, and I stand up, and he'd be like, I want you to come to Auburn and be a linebacker for me. And, he'd leave out the room, and he was like, yo, you got to put him a few more pounds on. He'd walk out, and I look at my buddy like, man, your dad crazy, man. I ain't playing a linebacker. I was like 6'4", 6'3", 185 pounds soaking wet. I'm like, man, the linebacker ain't for me.
Right.
I was a safety in high school, so I thought he was crazy. But he told me I was gonna put on like 40 pounds. Like, you got a frame, you'll gain like 40 pounds in college, and I never really believed him until I got over there and I started putting on the weight. The first 2 years was really hard, but my junior year it started to come to me, and things just started to come more natural to me, and it's like he was right. I was a linebacker.
He walked in and told you gonna be a linebacker.
Pretty much told me I was gonna be a linebacker.
So that was it. I'm going to Auburn after that.
That was it. Well, it still I kind of fought it off for a little bit. I was like, I don't know. A lot of schools started writing me.
Right.
But then the schools that really had a big interest in me were like Southern Miss and Georgia, UAB. So I was like, I'm gonna go check Georgia out. I think I'm gonna go to Georgia. It's not too far away from home, but far enough. So I go to Athens, and I'm like, man, I can see myself at Athens. I can see myself here. And he stayed on me, and he really didn't want me to leave. And talking with my family, it was just cool. They could come and watch the games, and
it was just too close.
It was just too much. South was just too close. So I was like, you know what? I think Auburn is a place for me. We're gonna get this thing a try.